let's switch gears here. I wanted to talk to you about another topic that's kind of getting some steam in some of the national real estate periodicals, and one of them is, should lockboxes be mandatory? So the National Association of Realtors, and this was in Agent Direct News in Tampa back about a week ago, I read it, and what they're basically deciding is whether or not MLSs or NAR can make it mandatory that listings that be put in MLS have electronic lockboxes. Now, this will create some controversy because there are people and agents that literally do not like to use, the lockboxes, and then certain homeowners who don't like a lockbox on their door. They want the agent to be there to show it, or they want to be there to show it. So it's created kind of a little bit of controversy. I think there's some good and some bad with what's going on with it. Whether or not they make it mandatory, I'm not a big fan of really making much mandatory, right, because there are always unique circumstances, animals, pets, children, people that have a hard time getting, up. And so the idea of lockboxes being mandatory for listings is something that I have a hard time in my mind supporting. But at the same time, electronic lockbox is trackable. You can determine who opens the door. There's new technology coming where you can determine how long they're in the house. Every person that opens it, you know who they are, and it's just a lot easier to organize and schedule when you have that there. The downside of it is that the consumer feels like, just anyone can enter their house, and that doesn't really apply because you could put a code on it and limit, who has the code. And it's not a combo box. We're not talking a box where you go up there and dial it and open it up. This is an electronic box that realtors and appraisers have access to. We can put codes on it. We can even put timed access where the access to the property through the lockbox can only be through certain times of the day. So I find it interesting, but when you look in Tampa Bay, a lot of the general audience that sells homes doesn't really mind. But as you get into a higher end client, they're not a big fan when they're selling a $3 million house of having a lockbox on their door. And I can understand it because they may have belongings and valuables there that probably should be secured somewhere else if they're that concerned about them. But at the same time, it's something that is creating a little bit of controversy in Tampa Bay. So, Dania, let me ask you this. Sometimes, let's say you're dealing with showing homes that don't have a lockbox on them. And so you've got to go through an appointment process. Right. Can it be a little frustrating when you're trying to navigate through that showing process and you've got to manage so many different schedules, the right, agent, the seller? Do you miss showing sometimes by being that, closed off with the amount of, access to the property?
Right. Well, I definitely think that having some kind of lockbox and access into the property where you don't require a listing agent to be there is definitely a benefit. I could understand, the person that's, like you said, selling the $3 million house, that they would like the agent there. As a listing agent, if I would be listing that kind of a house, I would also want to be there. I'm sure there's a lot of intricacies and details about the house that I'd like to explain.
Right. And on the same token, on that same topic, just kind of while I'm thinking about it, the other thing that's a security risk. So these lock boxes are pretty stout. They're pretty solid. So if your agent's carrying the key, their office can get broken into, their car can get broken into, their house can burn down.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not wishing that upon anyone, but the point is that this is a more secure way. Even if you're requiring the listing agent be there, having the lockbox there and having the agent open the lockbox also gives you an electronic tracking of when your agent showed the property. You can have email and text notifications set up for that. And secondarily, it's a more secure way to store the key and access to your home than just sitting in somebody's desk at an office.
No, I agree. These blue, they're known by here in the Tampa Bay area. They're blue lock boxes, and they're pretty long. Those are very secure, and like you said, you can track them. You know who goes in them. To have access to these lock boxes, you have to be a licensed real estate agent, and not anybody could go in. So in a way, it is more secure than anything else. But when I do, encounter a house that doesn't have a lockbox that says that the agent must assist, it does become a little bit more difficult, because if I have, 6 houses to show that day, and we may be running a little bit late, our schedule may not be in line with the listing agent's schedule. And a lot of times they can't drive, from Carrollwood all the way to South Tampa, in the middle of rush hour traffic to show the house, and that may not be good for somebody that needs to sell a house. They need to have people need to have access to the house. If not, you can't sell it. You need to show it, and the
That's
easiest
right.
way to do that is to have a lockbox. But like you said, I don't agree with that being mandatory. I think it should be an option.
Well, we got to run to a break. We'll continue this conversation after a quick break here on 970 WFLA.